everyone, Kate here with my favorite books of 2022. This was quite the ordeal to organize. I want to give all the favorite books their dues, but I also wanted to be discerning with not just picking every single book that I read. So we're here. This is the list that I have, and I'm excited to tell you about them. This was a so-so reading year. I don't think it was the most amazing one, and I think maybe I feel that way because it ended on a really not great note. It was my worst Cloak and Dagger Christmas ever. I had 2 or 3 star mysteries and then 4 DNFs. So I don't even feel like doing a December wrap up. And so we're just going to move on to the new year. But there were some great books in there. So I am excited to tell you about the ones that I did enjoy. And the first one is this really tiny little gem called The Light at Tern Rock. I saw it filed in the Christmas section at the library, and then this was 50 cents at a used bookstore, and I wanted to own a copy so it could just be with the Christmas books. It also has some very beautiful illustrations in here. So it's by Julia Sauer. I had never read anything else by her. And I'm so glad that I picked this up. This is almost more a short story. It is 62 pages in total, a very short thing you could sit down and easily read. And it is about a boy named Ronnie and his aunt who end up staying at a lighthouse during the Christmas season. And it's just very simple and kind of pure in its message and its story, and it tells the story really well and beautifully and in a very moving way. So it was only 60 pages, but it made such an impression on me, and now it will definitely be a Christmas book that I return to in the years to come, and I hope that others might enjoy it. And also, it's funny, it says it's a Newbery Honor. You would think typically they have the kind of gold ribbon on it, but that's what they have. The next one was a little novella, and it is The Two Bells at Christmas, The Two Bells of Christmas. This is by Joanna Barker. I'm so excited to explore more of Joanna Barker's work after enjoying her Miss Adeline's Match so much, and now The Two Bells of Christmas. It is about 2 twin sisters who, the elder twin sister is considered to be more eligible, and she and her sister go to stay at a house where kind of the mother of the man of the house is really hoping that the older twin could be her daughter-in-law and wants to get them to spend more time together. Well, the more eligible twin on the journey there becomes violently ill and is not up for visiting. And so she talks her twin, Cassie, into acting like she is her, impersonating Vivian. So Cassie has a very different personality from Vivian, and things get very complicated when certain people start to fall in love with each other. It was very charming. I love the clever banter that Joanna Barker has, and just a very satisfying, sweet Christmas novella. One that I'm really glad I own and want to reread in the future. The next one is The Vicars Daughter by Betty Neels. If you like misread, I think it might be time for you to try Betty Neels. I did read a Betty Neels a few years ago, and I wasn't really wowed by it, but now the older I get, the more I am into this quiet domestic writing. And that was what this book was. She definitely has some kind of templates that she works from in her stories, but I think if you like the pattern, then why not just enjoy kind of that formula? And there was something just very satisfying and domestic, exactly what I was in the mood for, and it just came to me at the right time. So that was, that's the beginning of me reading much more Betty Neels. There was another little short story, Christmas story that I read. So I'm looking forward in the new year to reading some more by Betty Neels. And then the next one is a duology, and that is Family Grandstand and Family Sabbatical by Ryrie Brink. I adored this little series so much. I loved the lively atmosphere to it. I had read Caddy Woodlawn by Ryrie Brink, but nothing else. And just stepping into this world, the first one is following this family in their little Midwest college town. I loved the college town vibes of it, kind of the light academia feel. And it's football season, and also it's very seasonally aware, and I love that about it. And you're just getting to see glimpses of their little life. All of the siblings, and it's just, there's a beautiful chaos in that book. And so that one is really cozy. And then the more adventurous one is Family Sabbatical. And this is about the family when they travel to France when their father, who is a professor, is on sabbatical. And that one's fun because you get Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas are all included in this book. They're very funny and humorous and lighthearted. They don't take themselves too seriously. I think anyone who enjoys kind of family children's stories like the Vanderbeekers or the Melendi Family Quartet would definitely enjoy these. So we read these two in my Kindred Spirits book club. We all enjoyed the first one so much, and when I didn't have a November book lined up, then we ended up picking Family Sabbatical, and so it was really fun to have all of those end-of-year holidays included in our group read. I didn't know that they were going to be in there. And I really like both books. I might slightly prefer Family Grandstand because I love the being at home together, but then all of the holidays being celebrated with the family were really fun. They're both just 5-star reads. I love them so much. And then the next one is The Door in the Wall by Marguerite Angeli. And this is another little gem of a book. And I was in quite the reading slump when this came to me. So it was just such a balm to the soul. And it's about a little boy who, after an illness, is basically crippled and cannot walk. And so he goes to stay in a monastery. And it is such a warm and inviting environment, and he is not thought to be lesser than because of what has happened to his legs, and they give him lots of productive things to do with his time so he's not bored. Boredom is agonizing, and so I love that they give him things to do. And something about this book is really quiet and reflective, and it's a really special book that I highly recommend. The next favorite is Miss Clare Remembers by Miss Reed. I am so excited that I have begun through the Miss Reed books with Rainey and Angie and Chelsea, and we're going to continue going through the Fair Acre series into the new year. And so far, out of the Fair Acre books that we've read, I think maybe we've read 5. Miss Clare Remembers is my favorite, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be because the whole first section of the book I had really checked out. I was not interested, and then as soon as they moved to a new location, that was when I became very invested. And it's just really special to look back on a character who prior to this, you've been introduced to her, she's this older woman you don't know much about. And you kind of assume there might not be that much interesting that happened to her or that much depth to her character. And so I loved Miss Reed getting to unfold the layers of what happened in her life, in her past, and then looking forward to this new stage in her life in her older years. So I'm very excited. Then there is a related book that's kind of getting to know Miss Clare's best friend and what happened to her when she was younger. So very much looking forward to reading that one. And then the next one, I am so excited to say I finished The Faerie Queene. So I have wanted to talk about this at length on my channel. I have sat down and tried to make notes, but I am so intimidated, and I just know the academic world is not going to be happy with any book review that I do for this. This was an amazing reading experience, doing it alongside my friends Ashley and Roz of Scallydandling About Books fame, and it was so interesting to see kind of the religious imagery in here. And also, this was a bit saucy. There is cannibalism. There was even one part where there were naked women dancing around in a fountain together. So I think we just have ideas and notions about the past being quaint, and it's not always the case. It's just beautiful. It's a wild ride. And interestingly, I think the last 2 of the 6 books were my 2 favorites. So this is set up, there's a different character representing a different virtue in each of these 6 books. And each character learns about that virtue at length throughout it. And I love all of the older mythology that is referenced. This was very worth my time. I'm already planning on when the boys are in high school, we are going to journey through the Faerie Queene together. This is not ideal for close study because the notes are all far at the back, and then the U's all look like V's, and it's just a little bit tricky for reading. But accompanied with my David Timson audiobook, this was really just so transportive. So it feels very surreal to hold this up and say that I read it, but we took our time. I think we ended up finishing it in 5 months because I wanted December to be for all festive reads. And so yeah, I'm very, very glad that this was one that I was able to read this year. And then the next one is Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. This is a really fun celebrity tell-all. If you are interested in Harry Potter, you will enjoy this. Tom Felton played Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter films. There's nothing amazing about the writing style. It's just very charming. He has a very self-deprecating sense of humor. And so I did learn some interesting Harry Potter trivia. And one thing that I learned that made me very sad, the ghost Peeves that is in the books and is not in the movies, apparently they cast someone and even filmed scenes with Peeves, and then they just weren't happy with how it turned out, and so then Peeves just was never put into the movies ever. And I loved all of the sweet things that he had to say about his co-stars, and just it was a wonderful experience for him. So that was a real treat. Just easy, quick read, and fun to learn a bit more about the Harry Potter film experience. And then the next one that I want to talk about is Dark Corners by Ruth Rendell. This is a psychological, twisty-turny thriller. If you want not kind of more grim stories, don't read this. It is dark, hence the title, Dark Corners. I mean, I think the cover, it's very clear what kind of book this is. It's about someone who inadvertently, they give someone expired medication. They let them have it. They sell it to them, and then that person dies. And somebody else figures it out. Their renter. So this person is a landlord who sold the medicine, and they start blackmailing them. And it goes all sorts of places I wasn't expecting. And it's written in such a subdued, restrained tone that I was a little bit like, did that just happen? Did I just see that? At certain points. So really engrossing, very short, I think maybe 250 pages. So really a wild ride. And then the next one, two that I want to talk about. And these have been such a delight. So my dear friend Lisa, at the beginning of the year, I was talking about how Jan Karen's Mitford series I had read somewhere. She had been inspired after reading the works of Mary Russell Mitford, who was a kind of end of the Regency era, beginning of Victorian era author who wrote little kind of bookettes, just observing daily life in the countryside of England. And then Lisa, we did a Valentine's Day book swap on my Patreon, and Lisa gifted this to me. It is this absolutely stunning edition of Our Village. And then I love Under the Dust Jacket is also very beautiful. I should take a picture of this for Bookstagram at some point. I just adored this from start to finish. This is nothing plot heavy. It is just meanderings and lots of seasonal observations, and I loved it so much. It's just quaint. So if you like Miss Reed, if you like the Mitford series, I definitely recommend this. And then Mary Russell Mitford, I had two favorites from her because for Victober, she had one book that was published in the Victorian era, and it was 1837 was when it was published. So just in the nick of time, and it is Country Stories in this beautiful, beautiful edition. It says with illustrations by G. Morrow. And this one I also gave 5 stars to. This is nothing, there's nothing crazy that happens in it, nothing that surprised me a whole lot, but it's her writing that just is so captivating to me. So these were so nice, and ones I will definitely return to because they are so easy to dip in and out of. Very quaint in the way that she tells them, and I just absolutely adored them. So very happy to have found out about Mary Russell Mitford this year. Then the next one is, speaking of dark with Dark Corners, here's another one. This is Man and Wife by Wilkie Collins. This is one that I kind of broke my DNFing rule. Usually, if with a classic, I give it 100 pages. But this one, it took me around 150 pages before I decided that I was enjoying it and I wanted to continue. At 100 pages, I still wasn't sure. But maybe I was more sure than I realized because there was something in it. I thought, I feel like this book could be amazing. I don't know how much I can give away. I just know there are 4 main characters. There are 4 main characters, and there were kind of free marriage laws in Scotland at the time that if you declared in public you were married to someone, that counted, that could indicate that you were legally married. And so how this just can really shatter some of the lives of these characters, and all of the manipulating and everything that happens is just wild. And towards the end, it does get very dark, but it's kind of this like delicious dark. So if you like kind of darker, grimmer stories, I definitely say pick up Man and Wife. I loved this, and still, a couple months later, I'm like, that was such a fun read. So I'm very, very glad that I read it, made time for it in Victober. And let's see. Then the next one is The Little Lame Prince by Dinah Maria Mullock Craik. I was so taken aback by how much I loved this story. It is a sweet fairy tale about a little lame prince who is given a magic flying carpet. And the life that he has is very isolated. And so he thinks, if only I could travel to more places, then I would be happy. And then it's a little bit, it is very, lesson heavy. So once he has that, once he has more, then he wants even more after that. And if you like fairy tales, I'd say definitely read The Little Lame Prince. It made me cry in certain parts. It was beautiful. So I'm really happy that I did read this. And then in a very similar vein, it felt very similar to me, was The Light Princess by George MacDonald. So I read George MacDonald's fairy tale collection during Victober, and unfortunately didn't really enjoy anything except for The Light Princess, which had such beautiful, beautiful imagery. Very allegorical feeling, and I just really just ate up all of the beautiful language in this. It feels very much like a traditional fairy tale. The language is so lush, and it's just conveys a beautiful message about self-sacrifice, and I really just can't recommend it enough for those of you that do like the more symbolic allegorical stories. And then the next one that I really loved was The Three Brides by Charlotte Mary Yonge. If you enjoy Little Women, I really do recommend Charlotte Mary Yonge. Her novels are domestic and parochial, and there's something about them. There's just a real warmth and a sentimentality that I love. I love the tone that she strikes. She's also excellent at balancing many characters and all their interweaving plots. And in addition to that, having scenes with many characters and having the dialogue just bounce between everyone. And her books can make you laugh. Her books can make you cry. I do think The Three Brides and then The Heir of Redcliffe and Heart's Ease are all tied for a favorite. The Daisy Chain I enjoyed, but not as much as those three. And were just such a delight. I really, The Three Brides was fun because you're getting to see these three couples. It's three sons who are married, and so it's about their brides, all when they're newlyweds. And so the dynamics of the three marriages and how kind of the three brides handle their new role in life. And it's just told in such a dynamic way. And there are always going to be some tears, like I said, when you read a Charlotte Mary Yonge. And this one was no exception. And then the next one that is a very different experience is Witch Hat Atelier. This is a enchanting graphic novel series all about Coco, who goes to learn how to be a witch. And there are bigger things afoot and kind of conspiracy against her from certain characters, and it's just so full of fun. I love seeing all of the students hanging out together at school, and the art is beautiful. So a lovely escape kind of read. And then the next one is A Grave Matter by Annalee Huber. And this one is part of the Lady Darby historical mystery series. And they are set in Scotland. And these are a little bit darker and grimmer than my typical pick. But it is because of the compelling storytelling. They are such page turners. And I love getting to know Lady Darby and kind of the emotional upheaval that she has gone through with certain things that have happened in her past and just how strong she is. And it's such a wonderful series. So I'm very excited to continue in it. Just a great all-around historical mystery series. Then the next one is Green Dolphin Street by Elizabeth Goudge. This is one of these books, and I said this when I wrapped it up. You're spending a lot of time with a kind of unlikable character, and Elizabeth Goudge pulls it off so well. there's not much that I can tell you about this book. You're seeing two sisters contrasted. They have very different temperaments, and the situation that happens in this, I don't even want to give any hints, but Elizabeth Goudge knew of someone that it happened to. So you read it and you think, this is so crazy. What a kind of, what do I want to say? What a contrived plot, right? But it actually happened. So it's just, it's not necessarily a fun book to read because you're reading about people really having trouble being comfortable in their own skin and getting along with each other. But you are, this book has stayed with me, and it has just left such an indelible impression on me. So Elizabeth Goudge is absolutely amazing, and I do think she has kind of the emotional force of Thomas Hardy, and especially with her lyrical descriptions, similar kind of writing style, but very different worldview to come from things at. So really believing in the inner, the strength of people, and that they can grow and change for the better. And they are not just victims of the circumstances that they are put in, because seeing characters here put in circumstances that they aren't really thrilled with what has happened, and then growing for the better because of it, is just so much more my cup of tea. Then the next book is The Bell Family by Noel Streatfeild. This is a delightful family story, and I want to read many more Noel Streatfeild books after reading The Bell Family. He is a vicar, and it is just their sweet little family living their life. So definitely kind of family Grandstand, family sabbatical vibes. I love these family stories. And also it has really charming illustrations. So this is one of the Shoes books. I think it was Theater Shoes originally. Yeah, so I love this. And right now I am reading White Boots, or Skating Shoes. And it's so delightful in a very different way. So I was very excited to be enjoying the new Noel Streatfeild children's book so thoroughly. And then the next one on the list is The Ring and the Book by Robert Browning. My friend Roz from Sally Dandling About the Books, she ventured through this with me as well. So she is a great booktube pal to have, because I think on my own or on our own, neither of us would necessarily feel that motivated, but it's really wonderful to have a friend to read it through, to kind of hold you very gently and loosely accountable. And this is one that I read. I found it really interesting. It is basically a true crime narrative poem. It is about a real murder that happened, and it's in 1698. Count Guido Franceschini, with several accomplices, murdered his young wife and her parents. So it's a very gruesome thing that happened, and Robert Browning had kind of the trial notes, and that's what inspired him to write this narrative poem. I was really in over my head with a lot of this. With the philosophizing parts, I really had trouble making heads or tails. So often, I felt like Roz, she is just really a really seasoned reader, and so she was able to kind of make heads or tails of more of the meanderings. When it was plot driven, I could really follow it a lot better. But this is a book, I read it. It was really interesting, great food for thought. There were interesting reflections on life and morality and faith. I don't think I'm ever going to read it again. I'm not going to get rid of it anytime soon, but it was just such an intense reading experience. I came out of this being like, okay, it's done. Whereas the Faerie Queene, I came out of being like, that was amazing. I cannot wait to read it again in, 10 years or so. So yeah, I am very glad that I read it, but this is one that I appreciated more than being like, yes, it was amazing. Okay, then the next one is Sad Cypress by Agatha Christie. Unfortunately, I really did not enjoy that many Poirot books this year, and this was the shining beacon. I remembered this TV episode, but I actually couldn't remember who done it. So it was fun to kind of guess. About 60% of the way through, I was pretty sure who had done it, but I loved this one. There is a real kind of sense of impending doom as you're reading this, and you just have to keep reading quickly, turning those pages, and I love that about it. Yeah, so it was just such a page turner, a real highlight in the Poirot series for me. And the next one that was kind of in the Bell family Grandstand and family Sabbatical category is The Armourers House by Rosemary Sutcliffe. I adored this from start to finish. I kept worrying that it was going to disappoint me because as I was reading, it was so dreamy. It felt very akin to an Elizabeth Goudge book. And what is the main character's name? Tamsin. And it is in Tudor England, and it's all about her time living with some extended family and kind of being homesick for the life that she did have. And it is so domestic and also very seasonally aware. So these are all boxes that if the writing is solid and it has those things, it's guaranteed basically that I'm going to like it. And just enchanting. This was an enchanting book and one that I'm very excited already to reread. And then the next one that I read and loved was Sidney Chambers and the Forgiveness of Sins by James Runcie. I adore the Sidney Chambers series, and these are all about a vicar in Cambridge, although eventually he does move to another town, and they are just so contemplative and introspective and very different from the other mystery series that I read. They are beautiful and thoughtful and philosophical and just beautiful, beautiful. Okay, then the next one is Come Rain or Come Shine by Jan Karon. This was the final in the Mitford series. I adored going through this series with Rainey, Angie, and Chelsea. It was so fun to come together each month and talk about the happenings in the little sleepy town of Mitford. Although once you get more, even though the books do have a sleepy feel to them, there is quite a bit that happens over the span of the series. You're following Father Tim and his wife Cynthia, and just all of the happenings in Mitford. And there's such heart to this series. I was devastated when we finished. It's one that I'll definitely be rereading the favorites in it, and I cannot recommend this series enough. It definitely has that southern charm to it. Okay, the next one is Why Didn't They Ask Evans by Agatha Christie. I think possibly my new all-time favorite Agatha Christie. It starts out where someone is golfing and he hears a scream. Someone has fallen off a cliff. So Bobby is his name, and he comes down to the bottom of the cliff. He's able to get down safely. And the man says to him, why didn't they ask Evans? And then he dies. Those are his dying words. And then the story kicks off from there. It is fun. It feels very heist, kind of like caperish. And it is has such a great energy to it. I love the humor. I love the mystery. It was so captivating and so good. And I was so relieved to love the BritBox adaptation that Hugh Laurie did. It was most excellent. And Hugh Laurie was a real creep in it, by the way. He did a great job being super duper creepy. And then the For Better or For Worse comics. So they have them now in big bind-ups, and I've seen them on Hoopla, and that's how I read them. I love this series. It's very slice of life. You get to follow the Patterson family and their highs and their lows, the ways that they delight in their children and the ways that they are exasperated by their children. It feels very true to life. And there's some really just moving moments in them. Kind of just how life really, you can have such bitterness and sorrow with such joy and happiness. And then the next one is The Trumpet of the Swan by E.B. White. And I was really delightfully surprised with how much I loved this. And it's all about a swan who can't communicate with other swans properly. And so he is given this trumpet, and he learns to play the trumpet really well and is very talented at it. It's just a solid children's book, and I loved it. So I highly recommend The Trumpet of the Swan. The animals are very anthropomorphic in it, and so it makes it really fun. The next one is The Beatrice Prophecy by Kate DiCamillo. I cried so much as I was reading this. This is one of those characters doing noble things and pushing back the darkness in the world because simply it's the right thing to do, and it's incredibly moving, and it's so poetically written. And also, this is one you want to read physically because there's a lot of illumination kind of art that's done in it. And it is all about this girl, Beatrice, who she doesn't really have many memories, but she knows that she knows how to read. And that is a dangerous thing for a girl in this country, the country where, I think it's just a fictional country, where the book is set at that time. Women were not allowed to learn how to read, and the way that the little community she becomes a part of kind of surrounds her and protects her, and it's just such a moving portrait of community coming together. And I really recommend it. It was very moving. And then one that I think is my second favorite book of the year, and that is Pony. I had no idea how much I was going to love this. And I recommend, if you have not read this and you like having music while you read, please put on the True Grit soundtrack while you listen to this, the Carter Burwell True Grit soundtrack. It is the most moving book. So it is a Western, which I always want to love Westerns, and then they end up being so action-oriented that I feel isolated from the characters. And this is what I always want Westerns to be. And there's some unusual things. There's kind of a ghost who's a best friend. And it seems like it would fall flat and not work, but it does. There's just something about it that it really does work. And it's just such a moving book about the lengths that you will go to for those that you love. And it's one that I'm definitely going to reread at some point in the future. The next one is the entire Vanderbeeker series. So you're not quite caught up because one just came out. This is one of these newer contemporary children's series that feels very classic. And it does have diversity in there, but it just feels so organic to the plot. It's like it happens to be part of the plot, and then it doesn't feel like it takes over the story to make the story not feel organic. There's something so special about this series, and I hope that many readers out there come to find it and come to know and love the Vanderbeekers like I do. They live in a brownstone house in Brooklyn, and I just love the very much like city feel of it. It feels very different from a lot of other books that I read that are set in the countryside or the suburbs, and there's something so special about this series. And Peter and I have listened to the audiobooks, and we're so excited to listen to the next one. We have to wait for the library to get it, so hopefully they do soon. And then the next one, that is one I couldn't believe how much I loved, was The Wind in the Willows. And so it's one of those, I was like, an animal book, I don't know. I don't necessarily gravitate towards animal books, but this is a work of genius. And Teddy Roosevelt apparently was a very big fan of The Wind in the Willows. And it is such a balm to the soul. You're following the adventures of these woodland creatures, and there is so much humor to it, and it's written in such a friendly tone, and but the pacing is perfect. It's just an immaculate book, and I loved it so much that I was like, I can't let all of 2023 go without a reread. So it's locked in for the November pick for the Kindred Spirits Club, and I'm very excited to read it all over again. And then the next one is The Joy of the Snow by Elizabeth Goudge. This is her autobiography, and it was really interesting to learn more about this woman and everything that she experienced in her life, and her books are really soul-piercing, and this was no different. So I wouldn't say I enjoyed it maybe as much as her novels, but it was a really special book, hence it being on the favorites, and she's such a spiritual person, so it's really interesting to hear those observations from her. There are definitely some departures from Christian orthodoxy in her beliefs, so just go in knowing that. If you consider yourself more kind of, you would ascribe to the Apostles' Creed, or the Nicene Creed, there are some definite departures in her theological beliefs. But other than that, I did really enjoy it. The next one is The Dollmaker of Krakow. So thank you so much to my friend Melissa for recommending this to me. This is the Chronicles of Narnia meets The Hiding Place. So it is definitely not one to put into the hands of a younger child, but if you have a kid who is learning about the Holocaust and really grappling with it, I think this is a wonderful book to put into their hands, because the magical realism of the story takes kind of a bit of the sting of the topic out. It's so special. And oh my goodness. Yeah, so I want to show you, there's also illustrations in this edition. When I saw this for $1 at the used bookstore, I was like, yes, I will. So yeah, it's just really, really special. Obviously, it's set in Krakow in Poland during the Holocaust. It doesn't shy away from the horrors that happened then. So you need a box of tissues handy, but it's done so beautifully and so moving. Yes, lest we forget. The next one is Playing for the Ashes by Elizabeth George. Oh my goodness, the Linley series. I I was just messaging with my friend Kate because we read through this series together and we're starting the next one. It had been a whole year and I told her I basically at this point am physically aching to be back with these characters. They are mysteries, but they are so layered and in depth, and the characters of oh my goodness, I just drew a blank on the characters. Lindley and Havers, that's her name. Okay, this is real time, folks, how this is happening. The characters of Lindley and Havers and their personality differences, but how they can really complement each other at the same time. Oh my goodness, it's just so delightful. I read this series. If you like intense mysteries, try this series. Okay, then the next one is Towers in the Mist by Elizabeth Goudge. So I did read 2 Elizabeth Goudge this year. I kind of wish I had read 3, but then you know what? Then I have one, more that I can read this year that I haven't gotten to yet. I do want to reread some of her books in the future too. This is set in Elizabethan England. It was such a wonderful note to start the year out on. It's historical fiction, obviously, like I just said. It's very much the academic setting. There are real figures from history that are featured in this. And I really love it. It's very different from Green Dolphin Street, a lot less intense. This is more lighthearted. But then I did look up certain people like Robert Sidney, the poet. I just cry thinking about, I'm pretty sure it was him who, when he was on the battlefield and dying, and he saw someone next to him who was also dying, he gave them the last of his water because he said that they needed it more. And I found that so moving. So nothing like that happens to Robert Sidney in this. This is altogether delightful and whimsical. This one is definitely whimsical. It's a lot less serious than Green Dolphin Street. So this is a wonderful one. And then the next one, and these feel weird because I finished them all the way at the beginning of the year. The Sun in the Morning and Martha's Vineyard, Isle of Dreams. This one, it was slow going at points. I took a long time to read this, but I cannot recommend it enough if you love memoirs. It's so interesting. Now, I did try reading Golden Afternoon, which is the sequel, and I am not a series binger. I just can't do it. I need some time in between, so I'm letting a little more time go before I start it because I don't want rushing picking it up to be a factor in why I wouldn't necessarily enjoy it. So, The Sun in the Morning, so interesting to hear about the Raj era in India and the British children of, the children of British soldiers that grew up in India, and she loved it so much. When she went to England, she hated it. She thought it was so dreary and gloomy in comparison, and she just loved, she thought the food was so bland. So she just has such a clear love for India. There's so many interesting anecdotes that are in this. For instance, at one point, they're all riding in a boat, her father, with a bunch of soldiers, and they were taking elephants. And for some reason, one of the elephants started swaying in the boat, and all of the other elephants started joining in. And eventually to the point where they thought the boat was going to capsize. That's when all the elephants were coordinated in, the bottom of the boat or the ship, and are doing that. The boat was really about to capsize. So finally someone had the idea to turn half of the elephants around so that it would sway more gently. And her father was saying how there would be no explanation if someone saw the ship sunk. Like it was a calm day at sea. They would never figure out why on earth did the ship sink. So many interesting anecdotes like that. Really interesting and just full of fascinating little tidbits of information. And then I already have picked up Martha's Vineyard, Isle of Dreams for a reread. In November, I read most of it. I have, that little bit there left. I love this book so much, and it is such a visual experience to read this. Susan Branch is such an inspiration in this book, going through what she did, her husband just kicking her to the curb, leaving her for a younger woman, and everything that she goes through. It's so moving, and it just feels so very lonely at the beginning. And then things slowly but surely, she starts to build a life for herself outside of the person she used to be. It's just a delight from start to finish. And then lastly, my favorite book of the year, I read it 2 times this year. That is Son of the Deep by K.B. Hoyle. You've heard me talk about this so much this year. It is a Little Mermaid retelling, except the boy is the merman and the girl is a princess, Rose and Orfeo. It is beautiful. It is the lengths that these characters will go to for love, but also for their people. And so it is not a selfish love. I love that about it, that this is a love that could really mend some broken relationships. And it's so moving and touching. And if you at all like fairy tale retellings, please try Son of the Deep. The Little Mermaid is not even one of my favorite fairy tales, but this just sold it for me completely. It spoiled me for any other retelling of The Little Mermaid. So highly recommend it. Please, please read Son of the Deep. Those are all of my favorite books of 2022. Thank you so much for watching if you stuck around this long. Thank you so much for if you left any comments or watched at all, gave any of my videos a thumbs up. It is just such a delight and an honor to make videos talking about the books that I'm passionate about. So that was a very lengthy video, and I will be back for many videos this year, and have a great day, everyone. Bye.